Today is Wednesday, October 10th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I'm Goes. That's Dan Tom. That's John Morgan. Voice you hear in your head, that's Danny Okers. I just realized if John sits straight up, I look like his kid. Why does our headsets keep coming up?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even touch on the board.
Uh-oh.
It's on that happens occasionally, but
I know what it is.
Okay.
By the way, when we say pre-show, we mean troubleshooting period.
The pre-troubleshooting show.
That's right. We're not providing content.
That's right.
We're just providing an opportunity to make sure nothing's going wrong.
I don't know what you're talking about. I provide content by every second of my life.
That's what's up.
MMA Junkie Radio is not responsible for any
every day.
seizures induced by the in and out audio jerking.
Just figured out there, Big Cozy?
Yeah.
Freezing?
It's a tight wire.
Better? Yeah, welcome back to the
Yeah.
Good.
Junkie.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back. Danny, why do you still sound like death? You're not getting better.
Hey, you're right. Maybe working 12-hour days doesn't make somebody better.
You know what's funny?
Way worse.
Didn't you or someone
Thank
say,
you. I
like,
feel way worse, too.
last week she said, "Oh, I might be getting sick," and of all people, Danny was like, "Oh no!" We're like, "Why are you worried, Danny? You're the guy who has like a microphone and 3,000 miles separated between us." And
I'm telling you,
sure
man.
enough, you're the one that got sick, Danny.
When people start saying it, eventually it gets to everyone. But I've missed the last. You can say.
Yeah, if you say that, that works the same way as the getting pulled over by a cop, right? Or getting a ticket?
Which I did
Were you
today.
What?
And
What?
well, there was an accident,
Okay.
and I get pulled over. The guy's just trying to tell me like how to get around the whole thing, and then my phone rings, and the cop starts laughing because on my screen it says, "Call from blue-haired chicken McNugget with feet," and that's Danny.
And me.
And so
He read that?
he read it because it comes out in big letters on the screen there.
Oh my.
Coming up in a minute.
So if you were in trouble, that would have probably gotten you a pass then, right?
That's what I'm
I would
saying.
hope so. I would hope it'd be enough. Guys don't have too many moves, not like hot chicks. You know, they
Can't
can
do
get out of anything.
Can't do the Peter Griffin thing like the Family Guy.
What did he do there?
Gives him a quick flash, but he's a dude. It just doesn't work.
Just tries
Definitely
anyway.
can't do that. Huh?
Just got texted from Greg Savage. Will Brooks may join us at 11:40 a.m. So
Coming up at 30.
we're still not assured of it though.
Okay.
Okay.
Just so you know, everyone heard that over the air.
Mm-hmm.
In case he was trying to be like sly about it. Alright guys, we're coming up at 10.
Okay.
Stand by.
Ill Will Brooks.
My throat's feeling better.
Huh?
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host. To my left, it's the fight analyst, Dan Toms. Back east, producing as always, Danny Otto. Sitting to our far right, multiple-time nominee and former Journalist of the Year, John Morgan. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
What's going on?
Not much, man. Where do we start?
Oh, I was going to say.
Where do we start?
Welcome to the circus, everybody.
Yes.
That's what it was called.
Hey, I'll tell you what, though. I actually loved seeing all that mixing and matching. Now, individually, I felt for some fighters. I don't want to see a guy like Poirier get hurt, and I sure hope the report is that it's something where, well, he can't make it to New York, but maybe Toronto or Vegas, something minor. Of course, DC and Lewis got signed hours after we spoke to Lewis, and Lewis coyly was dodging us, although we kind of tried to press him, and we had that feeling, he's bullshitting, it might be going down, and it is going down. So let's start with that. Daniel Cormier and Derrick Lewis will headline UFC 230 in New York, and the previous main event of Valentina Shevchenko versus Jar Eubanks has been moved, except only Valentina Shevchenko has been moved to UFC 231 in Toronto on December 8th. She now faces again Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the former UFC strawweight champion. So Jar Eubanks is pissed. That's all she is. She's pissed. She's not booked, as far as I know. So we got that going on, and then we find out Dustin Poirier is out of what would have probably been the co-main event once Valentina got moved. But we'll just say it was a fight that was booked for UFC 230. And for those that are still hoping, Nate Diaz is on the card. He's not. So where do you guys want to start?
Let's start at the top.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a crazy situation, and I see a lot of people, on one hand getting excited about certain matchups. People saying, Cormier and Beast, that's some fun. I see other people hating on the UFC, like, oh my God, what are they doing, Madison Square Garden? I do wonder why. All along, the obvious answer seemed there, man. Diaz and Poirier as a headliner, whether it was a title fight or not, it always seemed like the obvious answer, and it almost felt like there was some kind of frustration there that because the UFC's hand was being forced, they didn't want to allow that to happen, almost like, had it been my idea, sure, but since it's your idea, to hell with you, So I thought that was frustrating. But what I will say is, hearing all that we've heard behind the scenes and knowing all that's gone on, I kind of feel for the UFC and the matchmakers in this regard, man. I mean, they went through a lot of options. It's not that they didn't have ideas. It's not that they didn't try to put, big fights together. It's just circumstances kept popping up and things didn't happen. So I feel like this is the best of a bad situation. But I will say two things that come out of this for me. Number one, immediately we're already seeing that new USADA policy pop up, right? The idea now, Poirier is injured. But is he injured? Or did he get popped by USADA?
And we went through it with Joanna, too.
You know what I mean?
They take her off.
Yeah, so that bothers me. It shows me, and I knew right away that USADA policy was going to cause problems, but we're already seeing it in effect. You know what I mean? So that bothers me, and I get why USADA's doing it. I don't know what the perfect answer is, but this just goes to show that there's a problem. The other thing that gets to me a little bit is, as much as I love Derrick Lewis and as much as I'm happy that he's getting paid, we know that he's just doing this to take care of his family. I'm happy for him. And I'm happy that Cormier is getting another fight. Anytime we get a chance to see DC fight, knowing that the end is almost here, I'm happy for that too. But it does concern me a little bit with Derrick Lewis especially. He went through a tough fight. I know he got that amazing come from behind knockout, but how many times was he wobbled in that fight, man? He was hurting. That was a tough fight that he went through. And the NSAC originally came out and gave a 30-day suspension, and then they backed it up a week. We don't know exactly why yet, but it sure does seem to be maybe helping out the fact that the UFC needed to fill that. The other thing is you had Daniel Cormier saying, listen, man, I can't even make a fist right now. That's why I can't fight on that card. But now he's good to go. And I know that the UFC needs those guys. They wanted those guys, and I know that they're answering the call of the promotion, so I appreciate them. It's just there's a lot of weird things here, man. Overall, good, man. Glad the card is put together. Glad it'll be a fun matchup, and I'm glad these two guys are going to get some paychecks out of it. But I don't know, man. It just leaves me with some weird feelings, too.
And can I add to that? I saw the Metro PCS, when the fighters get together before a big event, and Miocic was saying, I'll go right now. So you could have really slotted him in to do the rematch. Now, I realize that's not the proper build-up. That's not the proper way to do things. But Jesus, what about Curtis Blades? Could you have pulled him off the China card? Because maybe he's obviously more deserving than Lewis. And Lewis who's saying, man, I'm not even ready for 5 rounds. I can barely get through the eating. Like John said, he took some damage. It just looked like he's not ready to go. But could we have slotted either one of those two? Now, for someone that says, well, don't take apart China. Well, they took apart Toronto to make Valentina and Sajara, and they took that apart and left Joanna out in the cold. So that's definitely not out of the realm of what the UFC can do. But there's just so many people getting upset, with all this. And then, of course, we got Sajara Eubanks. She's pretty pissed that now,
rightfully so.
Feel for her. Yeah, she's in the right.
Yeah, she is. I mean, that was fucked up. Once they gave it to her, it was. I was going to
say, I mean, you could feel for it in the understanding that she didn't have it to begin with. So, right. You're taking away something you didn't have to begin with. So I get why people – because I do see people saying, hey, Sajara, calm down. And I will say, she probably does need to be a little bit careful, man. She's going scorched earth right now. She still wants to keep herself in that number 1 contender spot. But how do you not understand her frustration? I mean, it's like, I had this, and then it was taken away from me.
Right.
I get it. It wasn't hers to begin with. But once she had it, it was hers.
Hey, you know what? You could argue that she earned it with the abuse that she had to take on social media and all the hot takes that she had to be victim to by being thrusted in a situation. She didn't even ask for it in the first place.
Yep.
So there's kind of a double-edged sword. So she gets burned thrown into it. Says, okay, well, I'm here. Let's make the best of it. Boom. There it goes. But stats to something John said earlier. Dave Doyle tweeted out yesterday, Derrick Lewis absorbed 121 significant strikes, including 78 to the head against Alexander Volkov. To your point about the Ngannou and Derrick Lewis, even though we don't agree, it's funny, we actually had a caller, credit to that caller that called yesterday, complaining about Derrick Lewis' ranking spot, which he actually is technically ranked above Ngannou. So with Ngannou being booked and the ranking, I could see that argument.
Wait, did I say Ngannou? I meant Blades.
Blades, I'm sorry, Blades. My bad. You did. You did. But he is still higher ranked than Blades. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
Whether
you
agree with that
ours?
In the UFC.
Oh.
Whether or not you agree with that, we actually had a caller commenting on that yesterday. So it is funny. I'll just say this: I've already been complaining as far as the strength of schedule, which we can talk about further and whatnot, as far as the UFC's end, and I'm not quick to blame them here. I don't think it was an easy situation for them either way. Like it was going to be hard for them either way. I guess my thing here is I just as an MMA fan, I kind of see where this is going, and I'm like, I didn't see a lot of contesting as far as the Lewis Cormier matchup. I saw people questioning it rightfully so. You guys mentioned the injury, we mentioned the battle, and even the commission helping that. But it's just what are we doing? We're rooting. Let's look at DC's story and just stories for a second. We all love DC's story from and it hit a rough patch where he was catching boos from a lot of casuals with the Jones thing, but now he's gotten himself past the hard points. He's getting his dream match, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's aligning. And if there was one thing threatening it, it was what? It was the other great story, which is him and John Jones. And now we're getting neither of those stories, and we're getting our champion, our champ going in with a busted hand against a guy who can come behind and starch anybody on earth. And I kind of see where this is going in MMA. And I love Derrick Lewis. We're all Derrick Lewis's fans, but let's be honest, Derrick Lewis could give a crap really about the title or anything like that. He really could. It was about the money, and I'm not hating on him or anybody for that. But again, how ironic it is that now we have a great story.
It's what Derrick told you guys yesterday. Why would they put this fight together unless they just assume I'm going to lose and DC's still going to get to fight Brock Lesnar? I mean, it's right there. It's
asking for it.
But neither guy will be 100% that night. We can all agree there.
Yeah, and you got to believe that the UFC definitely knew about Poirier as they were putting DC. That's why they did.
Yes,
chronologically, from our point of view, we heard about the matchup and we go, all right, that's fun, but was it needed? And then a couple hours later, you hear that Poirier's out and you go, I got it.
In what order did it happen? First DC Lewis, then they pulled Valentina, and then Poirier was announced hurt?
That's right. Valentina was almost at the same time.
If you're a fan that has a ticket to that fight, you're thinking, wow, they just added DC and Lewis, and you're feeling for that one moment, and the co-main is Valentina and Sajara, and Diaz and Poirier are going to knock this out of the park. And then they pull the other one to Toronto and you go, well, all right, I woke up with Valentina and Sajara with Diaz and Poirier as my co-main, and now I can go to bed with they're in Toronto, but I wake up with my main is Lewis and DC, and the other one's my co-main. I think I'm winning.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden you think, wait a minute, they're off, and this fight's off? Now all of a sudden I just have DC and Lewis, and I'm missing Poirier.
Yeah.
That fight fan's confused.
I'll put it to you like this. As I'm looking in the back end of MMA Junkie right now, Simon Simano is editing a column from Ben Folks that has not even been published yet, so I haven't read a word of it, but I believe this headline is fantastic. The headline is, our apologies if this UFC 230 column is obsolete by the time you read it.
That makes sense. You know what I thought of when I thought of not even be able to close your fist? because the first thing I thought of was, well, how can you all of a sudden close your fist?
Right.
I thought about what Tyron Woodley said. And remember, for Nick Diaz, he could fight with a torn labrum or whatever he had in his shoulder.
Yep.
But for another matchup, he didn't really want to do that. And I thought about what Derrick Lewis said, and he said, they obviously think he's going to beat me. I think that's just what it came down to, right? DC said, yeah, I could probably beat him with
He said that in commentary, too.
How ballsy is that? And then when you look out here in the sports book, how many people this morning are going to sit there and go, all right, DC, I know that. That guy's like the GOAT. I'm down with that. And hot balls? Hell yeah, I'm in. That's just how the UFC thinks, dude. A lot of people just see that and go, I'm in. Very few people look at it and go, wait a minute. What are they ranked?
Strike while the balls are hot, right?
Strike while the balls are hot.
Yeah, and to your point, DC said that in commentary too. You know, guys, it was that run where guys were just calling him out after they would win, right? Because he'd be in the commentary booth, and if you listen to the commentary, DC will be like, he'll say the right thing, but then he'll always come back like with the Lear Latifi thing. He's like, please, you want to give me guys that easy? Pay me, UFC, pay me. And to Goz's point, that mindset. I'm sure that's what it is here. It's just, man, you. Playing with fire.
I will say, though, this is crazy. I mean, as they were announcing it, we were kind of, writing stories yesterday and putting pieces together on the website. One of the things we got to do is pull up the guy's record so we can put it in the story. Derrick Lewis is 9-1 in his last 10 fights.
Yeah, he's legit.
And the only loss was to Mark Hunt,
who Blades beat, and that's why I was thinking, does Blades have an argument? But go ahead.
And what I was going to say, and I remember that fight. I mean, I was there. Derrick Lewis, had to be 50%, if that, 70%, if you're being nice, man. His back was so bad. The lasting image of that fight will always be as he was leaving the cage, walking by press row. He had to stop to rest on the cage for a second because his back was hurting so bad. That's right. He couldn't. He was hobbled so bad. It's as weird of a matchup as it kind of seems. Derrick Lewis is deserving of this opportunity, in a very weird way.
He's convinced us that he's not, though.
That's it.
Every chance he gets a microphone, he tells us why he shouldn't be fighting for a title.
That's how you get the title shot. Kyoji Horiguchi said the same thing. He said he wasn't ready for a title shot.
Got it. The next fight out.
The next title shot. Like, right.
So what? Do you know anything about Poirier?
I don't. I know we confirmed it last night, but that's all we know at this point.
So we don't know at least if it's serious or minor. Nothing?
We don't. We don't have any more details at this point.
And when was the last time DC said, my hand's still hurting? Like, has he given us anything where he's now 70%, 80%?
3 weeks ago, though?
Was it?
I thought 3 weeks ago he said, I can't really close my hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lewis obviously got an envelope. Hey, will you fight now? Okay.
For sure he can close his hand because he's on Xbox every day.
Yeah. So he agreed. Lewis agrees on. Okay, and why did they take apart Valentina? Because at the time they felt like they still had Poirier and Diaz. Because wouldn't that be a nice fight to just have right now, or they did not see that?
I don't know. We don't know the exact timing of that. I think they wanted to strengthen the Toronto card as well. To try to appease that market. And let's be honest. That was the fight everybody wanted to see. Behind the scenes, they didn't want to put that fight together. Eubanks and Shevchenko, they didn't want to make that fight. No disrespect to Sajar Eubanks. They understand the fight that everybody wanted to see with Shevchenko and Jacek. They know that. The matchmakers know that. The UFC staff knows that. But they were in a desperate position. I think when they got Cormier and Lewis, they thought, you know what? How many people, you said it. If people are holding tickets or were thinking about buying tickets, how many people were like, oh, hell yeah, I got Shevchenko and Eubanks. I'm definitely in on that.
Right.
No disrespect to Sajar, because I think Sajar is incredibly talented, man. I love her. I know she's very early in her career. I know her record on paper, if you take out the tough exhibition bouts, doesn't look that good. But I think she's incredibly talented, and I think we're going to be hearing from her for a long time. But the fight we all wanted to see was Jacek and Shevchenko, and I think UFC said, well, now that we got a legitimate, quote-unquote, main event, let's put this thing back together in Toronto. The whole thing with Diaz, and I've said it all along, and look, Diaz was telling people he's not going to show up. He's not going to show up at 155. He's not going to show up at all. The UFC had to make a backup plan. They had to. Now, unfortunately, it went the other way around. It's Poirier that's not going to be able to make it, but they had no choice. Diaz forced their hand, and to me, that is the most frustrating part of Nate Diaz, because who doesn't like watching him fight? Everybody loves watching him fight. But his biggest chief complaint is that he doesn't get the opportunities and he doesn't get the push that he feels he deserves. But yet then when he's given the opportunity, he's like, hell with it. I'm not showing up for that. I'm not doing that. Like, how can the organization put millions of dollars behind you if you're telling them I'm not going to show up for the fight? Would that not make them stupid if they continue to push you and then you didn't show up and you're like, bro, I told you. I don't know why y'all spent all that millions. I told you I wasn't going to be there. So this was just
Did you see Masvidal volunteered?
I did see that.
That would have been nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
totally like
I
that.
wish they would have done it.
Gangster weight.
When we saw him last, he was a little heavy.
Yeah.
But if you watch that show,
Ex-Sultan or
he's
whatever.
lost a lot of that.
He does. He looks good. Yeah, he's talking 155 again. I thought those days were behind him. But he did tell Diaz, probably because of the short notice, hey, I'll do this at 70, 305 versus the 209. And I started thinking, yeah, I'm into that.
Is Diaz into it, though? Is Diaz into it? That's the problem. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna get him to take a short notice fight in a different weight class, all that.
But you would think he put in the camp. He's 3 weeks away, 2 weeks of hard training left. He'd be taking a guy who's coming off a reality show. He doesn't have to go all the way down to 55, fight at 70, and you get paid. He's probably up to about 500 grand. Well, probably about 250 to show, maybe, Diaz?
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, that's about fair. So in 3 weeks, you're cashing that check. No disrespect to Masvidal, but he'll beat you. He doesn't really hurt you.
No.
Right? He'll just outbox you.
Yep.
Unless there's just a complete, removal from consciousness and the ref don't get in there in time. But it seems like the type of fight you can bounce back and be ready to go in January, February, or March when maybe Conor Part 3 might still be there or something else. Poirier, a revisit there. Who knows? I wonder if he thought this one through. Who is now his representative? He went from Kogan to, was it Lucas Middlebrook or something like that?
He was reviewing his contracts. I don't know if he was really actually
who
representing
now
him.
just advises them? I
think it's still Kogan, isn't he?
I don't know, but I just feel like that was a misplay. Now, that said, we just don't know everything that goes behind the scenes. Maybe Poirier is good to go in December here in Vegas. Maybe he feels like there's a lead in the Conor sweepstakes. I couldn't tell you.
It's crazy, man.
How about
this
the fact
card is
that we haven't brought up Conor and Habib for 15 minutes? that was a little refreshing.
We deserve a cookie.
It's time to move on. It's time to move on.
A little refreshing there, yeah. So that's the latest, UFC 230. Do you happen to have the card up? 230?
Yeah.
What is it now? What's it left with?
Well, you got DC and Derrick Lewis in the main event. UFC.com still has Poirier Diaz, but of course that's not going to be there. Rockhold Weidman, Jacare and Branch, Brunson Adesanya. And those are your key matchups.
So your main card's done.
Yeah.
You can put whatever to lead off, a firecracker fight to lead off, and you can't complain about that main card.
Man, I ain't crying for New York. New York's had some great cards.
I know.
They're gonna need some help for ticket sales though. The prices are so expensive there.
Exactly.
Everything we're told is that Madison Square Garden is incredibly expensive to operate in, man. Just the rent itself, and then all the labor is like union labor. Dude, I had the funniest experience in Madison Square Garden. This was before MMA was even legal there, when they would still do New Jersey shows, and they would come over and do media in Madison Square Garden and that sort of thing. And they wanted to film like a quick little video promo, and they had a lighting thing ready to go there. And I was like, yeah, I'll come do that. Went over to film the video, and they were like, hold on, we got to wait to turn the light on. I'm like, oh, no, it's just, all you got to do is just click right here. They're like, no. This is union. So we had to wait for the union guy to come off break so that he could press the button to turn the light on. And we were told if we touched the light on our own, they'd kick us out of there.
Wow.
It's just that. And so operating costs there are ridiculous. So
that happens a lot here, too.
Does it really?
Honestly, see this truss right here?
Yeah.
It's not attached to the wall, right?
Right.
If we're attached to the wall, guess who would have to?
Lighting engineer would have to come in and do it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so it's not. So tickets have to be expensive there because the operating costs are so expensive at Madison Square Garden, and it's still solid,
man. Does the same go for Brooklyn, John? Is it just Madison Square Garden?
No, Brooklyn's the same.
The whole.
Yeah. Well,
New York City?
I've told Brooklyn for whatever reason, Madison Square Garden is incredibly expensive to operate in, even more so than Barclays. I'm sure the labor costs are similar, but I guess probably just their rent being the premium, location that they are.
All right. So do you feel like another big fight will be added, or we're done? Because it is October 10th.
It's too
we're
late,
done,
man.
right?
I mean, it's too late. I don't know what else you could add to it. I really don't. I mean, DC and Derrick in the main event, Rockhold and Weidman in the co-main.
So Stipe now knows he has to wait out DC Derrick, DC Lesnar before it even gets back to him.
That sucks. Not gonna lie.
And we were boasting that he was the greatest UFC champion ever with the most title defenses. It seems a little disrespectful then, Garbrandt got an immediate rematch. But, again, we go in these big circles, but then will they say, well, Stipe didn't create a rivalry. He wasn't a needle mover, and this comes back to bite him. I don't know. Could be, right?
I like the Twitter exchange yesterday between the two of them. It was, Stipe basically came out and was, frustrated, saying he was the best of all time. He deserved his rematch, and DC was like, man, sit down. I must have knocked this guy silly. Wait your turn. If Brock can't show up, I got you. But, yeah, it's a frustrating position for Stipe to be in.
So I'm back to just It's sports entertainment bordering on a circus, and I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to forget about the structure of 8 beats 7, and he should now fight 5, and winners should fight winners, and it's going to drive me nuts. I'm just going to say, hey, man, welcome to MMA. It's nutty. Tune in. Just like Raw and SmackDown. When you tune in, they go, a ladder match. You're now the commissioner. A coffin match, and you just go, you kind of go crazy because that was your expectation. And so I think that's kind of how I have to maybe frame my mind.
But I feel like for the most part, they try to follow that pattern, right? I mean, it's not like just every time they're like, yeah, who cares about that guy? Let's do this instead. I mean, I feel like they do try to go along that route as best they can, but circumstances are what they are, and it is a business, man. They got to make that money.
So why do they want to go from Cejudo to fight Dillashaw at 135 versus at 125? I realize Cejudo now gets to make history. Dillashaw wants to make history. And to me, Dillashaw's got seniority, and he was calling for that fight. So yet again, that's a position where it kind of baffles me.
That one I don't like, except you have heard the rumblings of renewed discussions to get rid of the flyweight division.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
I like it.
There have been some rumblings behind the scenes that that's a possibility, and if it is, I mean, if that is really what's going on, I haven't heard anybody confirm that. I think even Dominic Cruz was floating that out there. And, of course, we know that they had discussed the possibility of it in the past. We know that for a fact. So it sounds like there perhaps is some renewed discussion. If that's the case, then that is really the only reason it makes sense, because I stand where TJ Dillashaw stands. Good for you, Cejudo. You beat Mighty Mouse, but hold up. I've been the champ. I was there first. Let me come get you. Dillashaw deserves that opportunity. And I guess the argument would be, but we know Cejudo can make 135. We don't know that you can make 125. And that would be a fair argument as well. Like, we're not going to put all this money behind an opportunity of somebody to go down in weight that we don't know if they can actually compete there. But
could they technically say Dillashaw will drop to 125 to compete for Cejudo's 125 belt? And Cejudo doesn't make Dillashaw doesn't make weight. It is now a bantamweight fight.
They could. If they come in.
The only thing Cejudo would say is, I would have bulked up, and Dillashaw, I don't know.
Yeah, if Dillashaw comes in at like 126, they'd be like, bantamweight title fight now.
I do wonder if
that'd be hilarious.
That would be actually a pretty good backup plan. I'd be like, look, 1, possibly 2 titles on the line.
You could do the same with DC, right? All right, DC and Jones. He couldn't make it. You're now fighting for the heavyweight belt. Oh, man. All right, what do you say, Dan?
I know we got to roll calls, but I just wanted to kind of add to the quote-unquote tinfoil hat theory. I saw a tweet float out, which caught my eyes as far as we were talking about show numbers. But Aaron Bronstetter tweeted out that he spoke to a UFC rep about 2019 going from 13 to 12 UFC pay-per-views. I don't know. This is going to be an interview coming soon on it. I wasn't able to confirm it, just floating on Twitter. But, they always say in conjunction with the weight classes, it goes along with their show number. I wonder if maybe they are trying to – is there any rumblings you're hearing, John? Are they trying to make it reductions behind the scene of any sort?
No, I mean the number of shows is set. I mean, it's set by the ESPN deal.
Right.
So I don't know. It's 42, I believe, is the final number for next year, if I recall right.
So pay-per-view would be the only thing they could cut hypothetically if they were going to maybe try to trim something somewhere.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right.
I hadn't heard any confirmations, but we will poke around.
Actually, let me put the producer's mind at ease. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll blast through the calls. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close, and we'll be right back. We'll do some calls. 866-522-2846. 3 numbskulls already on hold. Join them by calling again 866-522-3846.
Blah, blah, blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
This fall, hang out with Barstool Radio for their wild and outlandish takes on the hottest stories from college football, the NFL, celebrity gossip, and much more. Enjoy refreshing content that is by the common man for the common man on Barstool Radio, on Power 85 and streaming on your phone, and at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers. Let's jump on some calls because we do have a guest coming up at 10:40 Pacific, so that's in about 8 minutes. Start off with Muna in San Francisco. What's up, Muna?
Hey, morning, gentlemen.
Hey.
Morning.
Hey, am I coming in clear?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sorry. I'll be real quick. Two things. Something weird happened yesterday after they announced the DC versus Derrick Lewis fight, where most hardcores were like, DC's probably going to win, but we kind of get it. I had a lot of casual fans who were excited about the fight for the fact that this Saturday was their first time seeing Derrick Lewis, and they loved the guy. They added him on Instagram, and they started to retweet the clips that were going out. And Derrick Lewis, I got to give him credit. He is a great promoter. He, what he says, outside the cage, what he does in his social media platform, and I think a lot of fighters can learn from that. I mean, he's got a unique personality, but I was just kind of shocked. A lot of my casual friends are excited for this fight, and they want to watch Derrick Lewis. And I don't know if you guys have heard or seen the same thing yourself.
You know what? I live so in the bubble that I'll be honest, I don't have that much access to casual fans, but it makes all the sense in the world to me, man. I am not surprised. I mean, look at the numbers that were noted. I think on Instagram he went from like 400,000 to 1 million followers over the weekend. I mean, that's insane. Adding 600,000 followers, that is amazing.
And Habib made 4 million, right?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I mean, I believe it. I mean, this is Derrick Lewis capitalized on the moment, and I think the UFC realizing the same thing, that hey man, the guy's stock is never going to be higher than it is right now. We just had him in front of all these eyeballs. He had this. I mean, that was one of the moments of the night where everybody was just like, oh my God. Had it not been for the post-fight brawl, I think that would have been something that everybody was talking about. And you got to capitalize on that, right? And then you talk about him, going in there and giving that post-fight talk as well, man. The my balls is hot moment. Yeah, I believe it, man. I believe it. I think hardcores. I mean, even as a hardcore, I think you got to say, hey, man, gun to the head, I'm taking DC all day, every day. But I mean, the definition of a puncher's chance, right? I mean, if Derrick Lewis hits you, you are going night-night. So I guess it is possible, but I'll be honest with you. As happy as I am for the guys in the matchup, I'm not incredibly intrigued by the matchup because I feel like Cormier should win it, 99 times out of 100. But I could see the casual fans being like, I dig this.
I just don't know how the promotion's going to go down because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when Derrick needs to get nasty, he can get nasty.
Right.
And I don't know if it's going to be – because DC can be fun too. I don't know if they're just going to put their arms around each other and crack jokes or if one of them's going to be the nasty guy. The second that happens, it could actually start to get promoted.
That would be pretty funny if they if they kind of kept it jovial until all of a sudden like fight week and then Derrick Lewis just like, shove somebody or whatever. I mean, that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, DC will poke at him. He
Yeah,
ain't afraid to poke at a guy. He's a nice guy and all, but he's not. He's game
That
too.
is true. I mean, once the signatures are on the contract, I bet DC will start to mess them a little bit.
Well, Javier Mendez was just in here the other day saying he's probably one, and not bullying in a bad or mean way. He didn't project DC that way, but you'd be surprised at the way DC, takes to the guys in the room.
It would be simple to start messing with them, when people because as soon as they have like a conference call or a press conference or whatever, the first question is going to be DC. Why'd you take this fight? And it would be super easy for him to say because it's so easy. I know I'll still get to face Brock Lesnar. Like I'm gonna smash this dude around. This is an easy payday. I couldn't believe they came to me with this. Luna?
Yeah. The only problem with this fight is, unfortunately, we just saw this fight in January with Stipe and Ngannou. So, and I think this is even a worse matchup than that one. So that's the only thing as a hardcore fan. But I'll still watch it. And one last point. I feel bad for Sajara Eubanks. I mean, she kind of blasted Dana White and Mick Maynard where, as a fighter, you want to get a chance to fight for the belt. This was her second opportunity. And first time she screwed up. This time they took it away from her. So I can understand where she's pissed off, where they are kind of messing with her livelihood. And
right.
So I'll take that off air, but you guys have a great day.
Thank you. I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because I see her point. It's a fair point, but at the same time, when they took it away from Joanna, she didn't not that she needed to, but I don't think she felt, wow, tough break for Joanna. They're messing with her livelihood. So sometimes you catch a break, and sometimes things don't go your way. And like John said earlier, knowing that happens in this crazy sport of ours, maybe just live the fight another day. We know you're close. We know you're on that radar. Let that fight play out. It's not that far away. And let's see what happens in 2019, We got to take another break. I don't want to run into a mess at the very end. So let's do that. Let's get it out of the way. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Performance-enhancing drugs. George and Goes came back clean, but Dad tested positive for Viagra. Like a lot of it. Here are the boys.
Get the radio channel numbers and a link to listen to your favorite NFL, college football, or National Hockey League team sent right to your smart device. Just go to SiriusXM.com/sports today and click Add to My Calendar. PFL 9 is on Saturday in Long Beach. Goes and I will be out there, and we have some tickets to give away in the next 3 shows. So you definitely want to keep your eyes and ears glued to the YouTube page there, because we'll figure out some creative ways to give them away. We got some VIP and some arena seats. All right, joining us now is the president of PFL, Carlos Silva. What's up, Carlos? How you doing?
How we doing, fellas?
Congratulations on that. You did a triathlon recently, right?
I did an Ironman recently, yes.
Damn. That's crazy. Is that the one in Hawaii, or are there different versions of the Ironman, throughout the world?
That was no, the World Championships is in Kona. This was one of their races during the year. It was Ironman Maryland, and still got to travel a long distance, but I got it done in 13 and a half hours. So it's all good.
You're a beast.
Wait, what exactly goes on in Ironman?
You swim, you bike and you run. And if the
swim,
Ironman's 2.5 miles, go ahead.
You swim 2.4 miles, swim 112-mile bike, and a 26-mile run to cross the finish line.
Good Lord.
So included in that is a marathon, by the way.
Yeah.
On top of the long bike ride and on top of the swim.
Yeah, you finish with the marathon. That's right.
So the movie Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, he basically did on foot.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. Carlos,
something like that.
Are you going to download MBOP so when you're doing your next training session for these triathlons? We're trying to do you a solid there.
There you go. Definitely.
Hey, before we get to PFL 9, tell me about PFL 8. What stood out to you as far as the positives? Because that was the beginning of your playoff. And you got to see these warriors go out there and fight twice in one night. You guys pulled it off. You got some solid fighters for your finals on December 31st at PFL 11. But did it all play out the way you all imagined it? Was it stressful behind the scenes? Making sure these guys stayed healthy and your time limits and everything that goes along with a card on the production side.
Yeah, look, I think all of those things. I think, how did it play out? I thought it was an amazing night of fighting. I think the quarters and the semis, fighting twice and having to win twice in the same night. I think all the fighters were wondering how they were going to perform. I thought everyone came out of the quarters in great shape. I think everyone rested up, and I think as a result, I thought the semifinal fights were amazing. I mean, especially that finish that we saw with Copeland and Nicholson. That's not only is that a good a fight ever, it's even more amazing when that was the second, their second fight in the semifinals coming back, and Nicholson was going at it hard, and Copeland, as you saw, he struck gold there with that right hand, and so I thought everyone came out of it healthy. Everyone's ready now. Lance and Steven Seiler, Lance Palmer, Steven Seiler, on one bracket were the number 1 and 2 seeds. And then you've got on the other side Felipe Lins and Josh Copeland, number 3 and number 8, I think, if I'm correct. And it sort of just works out that way. You got to win in advance in the bracket. So we were really happy. I think the fighters were excited about it.
What were the looks on the faces of the 4 fighters that know their lives could change on December 31st? Were you able to interact with them? Was it relief, joy, a little bit of both?
Definitely a little bit of both. I think all of them are, when we started this journey back when we got all the fighters together for a weekend back in February in Orlando, we did a media day with all of them. I think all 72 of them thought they could win $1 million in their weight class. And now it's starting to get whittled down with 2 weight classes having the finalists ready to go. I think they all know that in both cases they're gonna have some life-changing money here, both for the winner and for the runner-up. Because let's not forget the winner gets $1 million, the runner-up gets $200,000. So it's life-changing money for both of them.
Yeah, no doubt. Carlos Silva, PFL president, joining us here on the hotline. So turning the page to PFL 9, it takes place on Saturday. And we have the lightweights and the light heavyweights as we close all the way to the finals on December 31st in New York. That'll be PFL 11, where they will give out $1 million to the winners and $200,000 to the runners-up. All right, John Morgan, what do you have for Carlos Silva?
Yeah, Carlos, I wanted to ask you, this whole thing has just been fun to really watch happen, and it's a learning experience, right? I know there were lessons learned in the regular season and tweaks that can be made. We're only one of 3 weeks into this, but was there anything that happened last week that you thought, we got to tweak that, we got to fix that, we got to change it, or did things go down, exactly as you hoped?
I have to tell you, in New Orleans, things went down quite perfectly. And so I think just for the team, we've all talked about how, look, that was a great fight, a great night of fights. The quarters and the semis worked out well. People made weight. All of our fighters made weight. Our fighters all understand if you don't make weight, you don't enter the quarterfinals. We brought all alternates in case that happens, but to the credit of all the fighters, they made weight. I think that event is now over. The 45s and the heavyweights got it done. Now we got to see how the 55s and the 205s do, and they've got to hit their marks too. They got to make weight first. They've got to fight a smart fight in the quarterfinals and get a win and advance to that semifinals where they got to leave it all on the line to try and make it to New York City and win their $1 million. NOLA went really well. We've got a lot of things in place. If there's changes and things happen here in Long Beach. But look, we hope the fighters are all hit their marks, and it'll be another great night.
You know, it's funny, when I saw the weigh-in results come back in last week, I did get a little chuckle out of that with all the talk about weigh-ins and how they should be handled and how we fix it and all that. Boy, when there's $1 million on the line, everybody hit weight, man. That worked out pretty great.
Ray Suffolk was here in our studio, and he was very stern. If you don't make weight, your playoff run is over.
Right.
So I like that they were very firm in that, and the fighters responded.
Carlos, let me ask you, moving forward as well. I mean, I think the interest is going to continue to get this, and I still believe when you write those $1 million checks at the end of the year, people are really going to stand up and take notice. But give me an idea, looking towards season 2, how other fighters can get involved. I mean, is there kind of because you guys are in such a unique format with this season, does that mean that there's kind of a free agency period or a signing period? Because I imagine you got to get people in the door by a certain time of year, right? So how does that affect how people can get in for season 2?
No, it's a great question. One of the things that we wanted to put in place for the fighters was that they knew if where they would be the next year, because fighters don't always know where they're fighting next. They might lose, and then all of a sudden they find themselves out. So if you make the semifinals in the PFL, and obviously coming out of the New Orleans fight, there's now a number of semifinalists, that both won and lost. But if you make the semifinals, you get to keep your seed next year. So those semifinalists, we know they'll be coming back in each of the weight classes next year. That'll be 24 fighters. And then what we'll do is we'll go and start to fill that roster out from guys that made the quarterfinals, and look at them one by one, and then certainly look at the other 4 fighters that didn't make the playoffs and how they fit in to create the best roster for next year.
I like
and
that.
We'll do that systematically and go from those semifinalists. Then we'll probably add 25 fighters and get to about 50 fighters before the championship. And then coming out of the championship, we'll get our roster announced by the middle of January, so that all the fighters will be able to, get ready, start planning out their year, and start planning out their fitness for a season of fighting, which is different, as you know.
An interesting twist.
It's like getting your tour card.
It reminds me of when you finish in the top 4 in the Premier League.
It's exactly
and
why
all of a
we did
sudden
it.
you're in the Champions League the following year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like it. All right, let's turn it over to Goes. Goes, what do you have for Carlos Silva?
Carlos, I want to know if it's too early yet for you to say this, but I want you to know that on our show, this has been the first time where we've actually we've dealt with rankings, we've done stuff like that, but we've never really dealt with formulas where we're sitting here going, fighter A definitely needs to go for a finish to be able to advance, to do this type of stuff. These are all ideas that you've had for a while, and they've clicked. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people love it. Is it too early, though, for the I told you so moment? And if it's come yet, I want to know who you gave it to.
Have not. We don't really operate under the "I told you so" moment. We're just executing. We're changing the sport. I think that every single fight here matters, and it's the way that MMA should work. Every fight matters. If you get a win, you advance, and certainly in the playoffs, it's win or go home. And that means that every fan knows. Everybody that watches on Saturday is going to know this is a quarterfinal. The winner, they know exactly where the winner's going. The winner's going to the semifinal. The winners of the semifinal, they know where they're going. They're going to the championship night. And, that's how sports work. That's how March Madness works. That's how the playoffs work in Premier League or the NHL or the NFL. And we think that changes the sport. And, I don't think there's any I told you so moment. I just think we have to continue doing what we do for the fighters and for the league and keep growing this, because I think it's great.
The fights go down on Saturday at the Long Beach Arena. It's PFL 9. So let me go through some particulars here. on NBC Sports Network. We're going at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Go to PFLMMA.com. For those of you that are in the SoCal area and want to go to the event, because tickets are available, and there's a link right there, right when you click into the website. Also know that the gates will open at 2 because the fights start at 3. Remember, there's a long night of fights, and a lot of these fights are going to be available on Facebook.com/live. You go there on the day of the event, and PFL is very prominent on that front page of Facebook, so you can catch those fights on a clear stream as they lead into NBC Sports Network at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. All right, Dan Tom, our fight analyst, what do you have for Carlos Silva?
Hey, Carlos. You already spoke on the fighters and Ray Seffo as well, as far as people chomping at the bit for Season 2. I don't think it's up for argument. You guys have overachieved when it comes as far as fighter interest and fan interest. The fan knows you guys are going to deliver. They appreciate the stakes. So I guess what I want to ask you is, how about things from the networking and advertising side? Obviously, you can't share business, but as far as an influx of support, have you been getting feedback from the networking and advertising side, and can you share any of that and how that's been?
It's a great question. We have, and I think like anything, this season and this journey started on June 7th in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and I think, and you guys know it because we were all in the same boat, everyone sat back and said, let's see how this plays out. The regular season went great, and now our first playoff night went great. And I think, look, as a league, we're only 4 or 5 months old, and I think now we're starting to see that interest across the board, both from our partners at Facebook and NBC, and I think others are taking notice, as well as a number of different sponsors and advertisers. And I think you're going to continue to see that whip up as we move through the playoffs and into New York City.
All right. Well, Carlos, it's been a fun ride, and again, Goz and I will be there in person on Saturday, so we cannot wait for that. But seriously, you have changed some fighters' lives. We've told you that in the past, and the different tweaks to the way MMA usually works has been very interesting to follow. It's a fun puzzle to try and figure out, and I think it's very, very fresh. So, again, kudos to you and the team for everything you've come up with. I know 2019. You guys are getting excited about that, and so am I. But we got to finish this first year out. So we'll see you on Saturday, and thank you very much for the time here on MMA Junkie Radio.
Look forward to seeing you at the arena, guys. Thanks again.
All right, take care. Saturday night, folks, don't forget, we got pairs of tickets from the VIPs all the way to the arena seats. So follow us on Twitter at MMA Junkie Radio, at MMA Junkie George, at The Goz. We'll be there again on Saturday, and we'd love to have you come join us.
I feel like this is a big weekend for him. No disrespect to last week, but any MMA would have gotten lost in the fold last weekend. You know what I mean? It's not that you're going up against the UFC. Yes, they're going against 2 Bellators this week. That's tough too. You're going up against the UFC. But last week was just that anomaly, right? Where it's like you're going up against the biggest card of the year, the biggest card ever. Yeah. So I feel like this is a big weekend for them, man. I feel like last week kind of got swallowed up a little bit. I feel like people are going to see it this weekend and enjoy it. We've said it all along. I love their concept, man. I think they've done a great job, and hopefully people are paying attention because it's pretty cool.
How about Andre Harrison taking that first loss?
Yeah.
Out of 19 fights, this is the last time. Well, I guess the 31st would have been the worst, but at least there it's a $200,000 night. But wow, disappointing, for him because he's had quite a journey to get. We give a lot of credit to Habib getting the 27-0. Andre Harrison was 8 fights behind that, but that's just such an amazing run to get to 19-0. Yeah. Now technically he is 1-1 with Lance Palmer, and maybe they can figure it out on another occasion. Let's go to Kevin in Chicago. What's up, Kevin?
What's up, guys? So I just want to make a couple points. Are you still on the McGregor hype train? You guys still on? You still think he's one of the best strikers in the world, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. One of, yeah. Not the, though.
I don't know. I got to come clean. I picked him, and I picked wrong. But even picking him and appreciating McGregor's skill set, I do got to say, I also felt people needed to pump the brakes when they're saying most dynamic striker, the best striker ever. I felt like that was getting a little overblown for what that's worth, Kevin.
But let's see what direction you're trying to take this, because I think it would be wrong to rewrite history and be like, Conor sucks and he always did. Yes. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that would be wrong.
Well, think about the ride that he had. I would say that he definitely was when it was time to be money, he was. He took out the great Jose Aldo in 13 seconds with a perfect punch, and then he battered Eddie Alvarez. So when he won his 2 titles, he rose to the occasion on the biggest stage, and he actually followed 2 predictions. Now, I've been very vocal about the fact not all of his predictions come true,
right.
But I like the way he strikes. I think he uses his distance very well. I think he's very pinpoint when he strikes. He's got heavy hands. I mean, he's right in the pocket. He's fearless when it comes to that. Could he be better? Of course. He absorbs a lot of strikes too. But yeah. So to answer your question, I do think he's one of the better strikers in MMA.
So I think the Jose Aldo and Eddie Alvarez's 2 biggest wins. You got to look at their career. They've been through so many wars. They just don't have the same chins as they once used to.
How's that Conor's fault though? He still put him down. It took Max Holloway 3 rounds to put him down in his title defense. I mean, why is it that Conor got it down in 13 seconds? Why is it that guys that faced Eddie Alvarez after that couldn't do it? Couldn't even beat him. Eddie Alvarez got the wins on that.
He got the opportunity though. He got the privilege to be able to fight those guys. If some other guys would have got their opportunity to fight them and got like a golden path to the title, they might have put Jose Aldo and Eddie Alvarez down too, but it's all about getting the opportunity, I think.
All right, I answered your question. I think he's one of the better.
You saw Darren Till. He got a golden path to the title, and then when he fought someone that's actually worthy, he got whooped.
So that doesn't make him bad though. That doesn't make him a bad striker. It just wasn't his night, and we got to go to the top of the hour break, and we'll be right back. Thank you, Kevin, for the call. The reason we played this song to start the second hour is the rumor has it Frankie Edgar's coming out to this. No,
Is he gonna wear his Reebok backwards? That'd be dope.
That would be funny, huh? Reebok jeans backwards, the hat.
That had to, when they thought of it, they probably thought it was awesome. But what? Maybe 2-3 weeks before they were like, oh, man.
Now we got to do it all the time.
Sit down in backwards jeans.
Yeah, but they stood out.
You got to take a leak, right? I mean, they got to go all the way down like a little kid.
The dump's convenient.
Through the hole? The zipper?
All right, Eddie Alvarez. Frankie Edgar will join us in just a moment here. He'll be fighting Chan Sung-jung on November 10th at the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado. They are the main event. And on that card as well is Donald Cerrone versus Mike Perry. Hey, something happened with Cerrone where
Frankie's there.
There was a near-death experience. But wasn't there something else? Is he okay? He's still good to go for this card? Cerrone?
He took a picture from a hospital, but I haven't heard that he's
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Benavidez versus Borg, Macy Barber versus Maya Stevenson, Durandamy versus Raquel Pennington. All right, joining us now on the hotline is the main eventer, Frankie Edgar. What's up, Frankie? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, my man. Thanks for joining us here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Excited about your fight versus Chan Sung-jung. You gonna hit the Mile High City a little early? Just get them lungs ready, or I mean, you've always kind of been a cardio machine, but they say sometimes it's a whole different animal over there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out there a little early. I fought there back in was it 2012 now, I think, and that's what I did then too. I just went out a couple weeks early, make sure I'm good to go.
Anyone ever pitched you one of those altitude tents? I think they call them. You ever tried one of those?
Yeah, no, I can't sleep in something like that, man. Forget that.
Kelvin Gastelum did it, huh?
It's like a cocoon, right?
Something like that, yeah.
I
Kelvin
don't think I
Gastelum
could do
did
that
it. He was
either.
living on a boat. He did it. Figured you're kind of like claustrophobic, or are you just not feeling all this?
No, I mean, I just gonna train hard. I think that'll work. You know?
How does Frankie Edgar at 36 feel doing these five-round fights? These camps for 5-round fights versus maybe Frankie Edgar of 32 or 30 or 28. Is it still the same, or do you feel like, hey, I gotta be smarter because I'm slowing down, maybe just a tad?
I don't feel like I'm slowing down. I think I'm just getting smarter. The sport's getting smarter, I think, I got in a while ago, and it was kind of not archaic, but I think we all overtrained a little bit. So I think just, being in the game this long and knowing what's right, what's wrong, I've gotten a little better at training. So that's kind of kept me bouncy, if you know what I mean.
Educate me a little bit, because I'm around some boxers from time to time, or people from the boxing game, and they still swear that some good road work can get the job done. But, you've obviously done that in the past, and you've obviously done strength and conditioning, but I've seen strength and conditioning involved, and I also seen strength and conditioning seem to wear down a fighter. What's the difference between the two, and maybe just going for like a 5-mile run 5 days a week or something like that and getting your cardio that way, the old school way?
Yeah, listen, if I jump up and down 1,000 times, I think I'm going to get in shape, It's about your focus and what your intent is and whatever you do. You can get in shape running, you can get in shape, strength and conditioning. I think a lot of it has to do with the fight that you're going to have, the type of person you are, or what you're trying to accomplish within your camp. But for me, the best way to get in shape is by fighting. Train to fight, sparring, wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu. That's how you get in shape, because that's what what we're going to do inside the cage.
So the pushing the sleds and all that other stuff, that's not really you? Not as much?
No, I mean, I do it all. You got to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
But, I used to think that, you got to kill it in strength and conditioning days and then kill it in sparring. There's only so many days you can kill it in the week.
Right.
And for me, I just feel like I want to make my sparring days my most important days. So the days I want to feel the best and, put the most work in.
Gotcha. All right. Frankie Edgar is our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. Goes, what do you have for Frankie Edgar?
Frankie, when it comes to the Korean Zombie, and you look at all the opponents you fought, all the different matchups, what's the one intangible that you feel like he brings that perhaps some of the other opponents haven't brought?
Just think his unique finishing ability. He could finish a fight pretty much on his feet and on the ground. I fought guys that can do that, but his is kind of a little, out of left field, a lot of stuff. Like a twister, or he's good darces. He kind of, maybe he's not in a dominant position when he finishes you, but he can finish you from everywhere.
Frankie, you have the personality and the fighting style that we can just plug you into a main event at any moment. Doesn't really matter who you're fighting. People are going to want to watch. And that being said, being so close to the top, how do you keep yourself grounded to just focus on the Korean Zombie and not kind of overlook a little bit as to what could come about a victory here, especially one with a stamp on it?
I'm just too seasoned for that. I've been in this situation pretty much, my whole career, always close to the top and always something looming, past the fight that I'm currently in, and if you lose track of that, you're definitely gonna get caught slipping. So I just focus on this guy. I know this guy's good. I know he's trained to make sure he wins, and that's what keeps me, focused on him. I don't want to lose this guy.
Frankie Edgar is our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He fights at UFC Fight Night 139 on November 10th in Denver, Colorado. His opponent will be Chan Sung Jung. John Morgan, what do you have for Frankie Edgar?
Yeah, Frankie, kind of along those lines, man. I mean, obviously, this is a big show for the UFC. I know it's just a fight night, but it is the 25-year anniversary. Pretty special moment. I wonder, did that factor in at all? Do you know? I mean, did the UFC come to you and say, "Hey, man, this is our 25-year show, and we want you to headline it"? Or, did you hear it was the 25-year show and say, "Put me there"? Or did this just happen to be, a fight against Korean Zombie?
I think I wanted to fight in November. Obviously, they're going to be in MSG the week before, an hour from my house, so that would have been nice. But and that's the one I was trying to get on. But they said it's a 25-year card, and they wanted me to headline it, and I thought it was cool. It's fitting. I've been in the game for a long time with the UFC. Actually, I think this is going to be my 25th fight for the UFC on the 25th anniversary. Makes sense.
That is cool, man. I wondered if you thought about that at all. I mean, you've been. It seems like you've been in the UFC for damn near half that 25 years. I mean, I think you've been in like 11 years at this point. I mean, do you ever take a step back and, I know you're not a big guy on legacy and this and that. I mean, but do you ever step back and just realize what you've accomplished and, man, just kind of what your entire career entails?
Absolutely. I still can't believe I fight for a living. This is like something you dream as a kid watching Rocky movies, and here I am. Got 3 kids. I'm about to be 37 years old and have my 25th fight in the UFC, and this is what I do for work. Some people, I'll meet some people and like, oh, you just fight? That's it? I'm like, yeah, this is my job. So, I mean, I'm living a dream. So to me, I'm just enjoying this ride.
We get those same questions every now and then. You just write about guys fighting?
Yeah. All right, it's time for the fight analyst, Dan. Dan, what do you have for Frankie Edgar?
Frankie, I've been hearing things about training. Obviously, you always work with Mark Henry and whatnot, but is there anything, as far as changing things up a little bit differently for this camp and approach? I know you spoke of the nuts and bolts type of things, but as far as, locations, coaches, anything out of the regular?
I mean, speaking of strength conditioning, I did bring in a new strength conditioning guy that I'm working with, this camp, Phil Daru. He's out of ATT, but he's, sponsored by my nutritional company, Iron Army, and, I brought him in to help me out. He comes up, periodically. He's actually coming up this week. Did some assessment stuff and tweaked my strength condition a little bit. So, that's probably the newest thing I brought in for this. But as far as Mark Henry, Ricardo Almeida, always the guys that are my head trainers and pretty much leading me into battle.
And along the same lines of conditioning, one of the sports, more famous strength and conditioners, George Lockhart, was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day, and he mentioned your name. He said he even mentioned that not only does he think you could go to 35, he thinks you could maybe even go down to 125 if you really wanted to. Was he being outlandish there, or is there some truth to that if you really wanted to put your mind to it?
I mean, I don't know about 25. 35 I could make. 25 might be a stretch. I mean, I trust in George, and if he says I can make it, I'm sure I could. I definitely don't want to, but I'm sure I could make it, man. But, my goal getting to the sport wasn't being the fucking, the guy that can cut the most weight and be the best, worker-outer. I want to be the best fighter and constantly challenge myself. So, if I got to fight guys that are a little bit bigger than me, then so be it.
I wish I could make it to 225. All right. Frankie, one last thing here. Okay, you've done it all. You've been a world champion. You've headlined a lot of cards. Like John noted, 25 fights in the UFC. But do you feel like when you see that McGregor got $3 million for his fight and Habib got $2 million, and we know they got considerably more than that because of the card they were on, do you feel like you can be one of those stars that before your career's over, you can get into those types of figures? Do you think about that? I want to give credit to McGregor, even though he is so polarizing. He has, I believe, helped move the salaries along. You know what I mean? And for some of these guys that are putting in so much time to the sport, I'm just wondering if they're getting theirs before their career's done.
Absolutely. I think, we all got to give it up to McGregor for pushing the salary up for everybody. But I still think, an opportunity to make that kind of money has to involve Conor. If it doesn't involve Conor, I don't know how many guys can really bring that kind of money in right now. But yeah, I kind of said that a couple of years ago. I want to hang in this game as long as I can, as long as this money keeps getting better. That's good for me. So I'm not fighting for money, but if that money gets better, I'll definitely be happy I'm still here.
Yeah, most definitely. All right. Well, we can't wait to see the fight on November 10th. Thank you very much, as always, for your time here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Good luck with the rest of your camp. Safe travels to Denver, and we look forward to UFC 139, Fight Night 139.
Thanks for having me, man. Take care.
All right, take care. All right, there you have it. One of the classier dudes in the business, Frankie Edgar.
He's just legend. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those guys that, obviously we're covering the sport. We're journalists. We're not supposed to pick favorites here and there. But if you're a fan of the sport, I don't see how you wouldn't be a fan of Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, let's just get to some calls here. I think we got some time. Let's go to Dan in Oregon. What's up, Dan? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Man, if these pay-per-view numbers are true, I forget what everyone's guess was. If it's like 2.4, 2.5, that over-exceeded my expectations. I mean, a lot of people were underestimating Habib, I think, in this whole reality of who's the draw and whatnot. And on that note, I got to say, was Habib completely right when he called himself the Floyd Mayweather of MMA? The dude is more hated more than ever right now and loved by the other half. And he's 27-0. This dude might go to like 30-0 and retire. Like, literally, is he the Floyd Mayweather of MMA? And on that topic, I got to know, let's do our 5 dream matchups for Habib. God willing, he wins all of them. Tony Ferguson, obviously number 1, is mine. I would love to see Ben Askren up in that shit as well. 18-0 at welterweight versus 28-0 at that point in time. That would be nuts. And then winner of Woodley versus Colby. I know Colby can make 165. Woodley's way big, though, so I don't know about that. GSP for sure has got to get his ass in there at 165. And to lastly, I'm going to say, for the legacy, Holloway. If Holloway can get past Ortega, I want to see that matchup. We almost had that at 223. I can't fucking wait for that shit. And I don't know if you guys...
It's a hard list to top. I think you nailed it.
I'd go the other way, though. I'd go Ortega. I'd go Ortega, not Holloway.
Well, the winner of the fight.
Well, he said Holloway, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the winner of it? Yeah.
Somebody was on Twitter saying something about Askren versus...
Yeah, he said Askren.
Oh, he did?
He had T-Ferg, Askren, Woodley Colby winner, GSP, and then Holloway, Ortega winner. That's a solid list,
What about McGregor, too?
I don't need to see it.
McGregor is 2-3 since moving up from 145. When Kevin Chicago says...
For Habib, right? He's talking about the dream list for Habib?
Yeah, dream list for Habib.
John, on Monday, you were all about the immediate rematch. You don't want to see it again?
I said they were going to do it. I didn't say I cared about
it. Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, you're right. I don't want to see it, but I figured that Habib would want it because that's a massive payday.
I don't think Habib wants it.
Oh, he doesn't?
I don't think he wants it.
Wow.
I don't think he wants to give McGregor that pleasure. I think he believes he did all he needed to do, and why would he want to put himself through that anguish again, you know?
Okay. All right. It's a good list.
You know, the one T-shirt I would buy in MMA, did you guys see did you tweet it, where they did kind of like the Nike, the Jordan symbol?
Oh, I did see that with the Habib doing the...
I would actually buy
that.
Yeah,
I would too. Yeah, no, for sure. That was awesome.
What was it?
I've seen a lot of those. Those are awesome. Yeah.
That when he jumped the platform, it's like the Air Jordan, but it's him doing that.
Yeah.
That I would actually buy it on a T-shirt.
Air Habib. That's something about an eagle too, right?
Yeah.
They've been comparing that.
Like one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, listen. The numbers I heard, low key were around 2.5 million, and I kind of thought that's where it would be, 2 to 2.5 million. I thought 2 was a guarantee. I thought 2.5 was probably, best case scenario. I didn't think 3 was ever going to happen, but I thought 2.5 is probably best case scenario. So I don't know, people that thought it wasn't an interest. I think sometimes you have to get out of that bubble. I mean, kind of, I guess like Muna earlier was talking about how casual fans are talking about how they love the idea of DC and Derrick Lewis. I think sometimes, man, we live this stuff so closely that we're like, oh, I just don't feel the excitement. Okay, well, maybe not among the hardcores, but when the casuals who never watch the sport are talking about it, man, that's when these big numbers happen. It's not from hardcores just all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork and saying, I'm finally going to buy a pay-per-view again. No, man, it's all those casuals. And so I heard it's around 2.5 million, which is great for both those guys. But
Meltzer's still the standard on that one, right? Or
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Has he announced anything?
I haven't seen anything from his point of view. Although, Dana always says that he gets it wrong. And I think Meltzer has admitted, too, that a lot of his sources are like cable sources and like digital sales and stuff like that, which we all know that digital's where it's going. I don't know that he has any idea of how many digital sales are purchased through UFC. I
saw him at Quintet. Mm-hmm. He was sitting next to us, and I told him, do you realize there's these exotic bets that involve, like, will they fist bump or not or whatever? But one of them was pay-per-view buys. Now, granted, the offshore don't let you bet too much on it because they can't really control it. But I asked him, I go, you seem to be the standard on this. Do you realize probably that when you put your number out, somebody's going to make themselves some money and somebody's going to...
That's funny.
He didn't. He kind of got a kick out of it, but he really sat there and thought, for a while about it. But I didn't know if there was anyone else that was regarded as the standard because the UFC doesn't really publicize that. So
they're going to publicize this one.
Yeah. All right.
Cigars in their mouth.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's take let's take a break, and that way we can. I want to shape up what we're going to do next. We did add Johnny Case. He'll be a guest of ours towards the end. I also want to do the daily debate. I think it's very interesting. We got 2 Bellator shows coming up Friday and Saturday. Take a look out for those main event breakdowns that we did earlier this week. Those were tough, man. Right till the end, Chael and Fedor. I've been just flip-flopping in my head. I put out Chael, but damn, that Fedor's been, pretty legit with them hands over the years. Does he still got it at 42? Who knows? We'll do all that when we come back. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Fight Nation Channel 93.
You know what?
Dan, is this you or me?
I like to play.
Charm, compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Get the radio channel numbers and a link to listen to your favorite NFL, college football, or National Hockey League team sent right to your smart device. Just go to SiriusXM.com/sports today and click Add to My Calendar. We could probably fit a few more calls in just a bit, but right now we're going to do our daily debate. So here it goes. Remember, this weekend, a lot of Bellator action coming, so this is pertinent right here to Bellator 207 208. With Bellator MMA's Heavyweight Grand Prix semifinals happening this weekend at Bellator 207 and Bellator 208, which two fighters do you see advancing to the finals? Bader versus Sonnen, Emelianenko versus Mitrione, Bader versus Emelianenko, or Mitrione versus Sonnen? John.
Man, I got to be honest with you. I'm feeling pretty good with Bader over Mitrione. I'm feeling pretty good about that one. No disrespect to Matt Mitrione, but just the way the matchup plays out, I like Bader. But I'm on the fence with Chael and Fedor, man.
You too?
I am struggling with that one. I mean, Fedor, one of the greatest of all time, no question about it. But he's up there a little bit, you know. And does he still have it? Chael, meanwhile, the wrestling I'm pulling the trigger on Chael. I know it may sound crazy, but I'm pulling the trigger on Chael. So give me Bader and Chael Sonnen as your final.
All right, goes.
This is going to completely contradict what my breakdown was. I'm on board with Mr. Morgan, and the one thing that tipped me over was, what am I going to feel dumber? If Fedor knocks out Chael, or if Chael just takes him down and rides him out?
Right.
And I think it'd be if Chael took him down. I'm going to go that same route.
Mm-hmm. Dan Tom.
I'm with you guys on the Chael Sonnen and Fedor matchup. That one is much closer than I think most of us would have expected through multiple iterations of it ever being put together through their careers. But I did end up siding with Fedor, and then of course in the other bracket, I thought Bader would be kind of a dark horse from the onset, but he kind of got favorite odds as this thing really took motion. So I see a Bader Emelianenko.
Bader versus Emelianenko. All right. Whew. See, I would also contradict because I lean towards Sonnen when we had our main event breakdown. It's going to be close, man. I love the speed on Fedor's hands. He goes out there and he's ready to crack. Back in the day, he could stop the takedown. It seemed like his hips. He always had pretty good hips, the ability to get up from his feet, but he is an older guy. Sonnen is so committed to just winning and doesn't matter how he gets the job done. That's why I went with him. I guess I'll stick with it. Bader versus Sonnen for me. But boy, that Emelianenko fight, man, that's going to be a really close fight. I can't wait to see it. And even Chael Sonnen will tell you, hey, I could very much be laying there.
Fedor could come out just flatten him.
You're going to have to wake me up.
I'm going Fedor and Bader.
I just convinced you?
Yeah, you just convinced me.
All right, yeah. Well, wow, it's a close one. So this is how it played out here. In fact, I got to put my vote in because I think we still have 4 minutes left.
4?
Something like that, yeah. So this is close enough here. Bader versus Emelianenko goes. They agree with you. All That's 33%. 31% said, wait, you said Bader and Emelianenko, right?
Yep.
So agrees with these two. 31% Bader and Sonnen, so John and I. 21% Emelianenko versus Mitrione, and 15% Mitrione versus Sonnen. This is pretty balanced, fellas.
Wow.
1,474 votes came in, and it was right down to the wire. Interesting. All right, thank you to Junkie Nation, our readers and listeners, for participating in our daily debate. All right, guys. I want to go back to something here. What do you want to see with Nate Diaz next?
Him fight?
Him fight.
How about that?
Does he have to wait, or is your preference to feel out and see what happens with Poirier and just keep that fight booking where it's at? Do you want to start the talk of a McGregor-Diaz 3 fight at some point? Is just were you warm to Masvidal versus Diaz, or is there even yet another? And I think someone threw out Kukui, but let's be realistic. I don't think Kukui will take that. I think Kukui knows I'm next for Habib, and if I'm not next, maybe he takes Diaz. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Here's what I would like to see play out. What I would like to see, honestly, now we don't know. It should be said, I guess, because I think we mentioned it off air. I checked in with Dustin Poirier's camp, and they said, listen, we're not talking right now. No update. So we don't know when he's ready to fight again. Because if it's something, like you said earlier in the show, if it's something where they could just rebook it in a month or something, let's do that. But we don't know if that's the case. So let's assume Poirier is off the table, okay? For my argument, Poirier is off the table. What I would like to see for Diaz next is the Conor trilogy. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because I would really like to see Habib and Tony Ferguson next. I feel like that's the right fight to make.
Put them on the same card? No, you don't need to.
Yeah, because that's
two different pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Two big payouts.
Yeah.
Keep them separate.
That's what I'd like to see happen. I don't know. I had the sneaking suspicion that the UFC is going to try to put together Conor and Habib too. Maybe Conor doesn't want to fight for a year, and so in Habib, and we still don't know what the NSAC is going to do to Habib. But if we're just saying, hey, John, it's your call, man. Everything's equal. You just don't get to do the Poirier. I say it's the Conor trilogy because that would mean that Conor is not tying up Habib and that Habib is fighting Tony Ferguson.
What do you want next for Nate?
I want him to fight Jorge Masvidal. Two gangsters just meeting in the middle of the cage. When you see them in there, you're not even going to see a cage. You're going to see a back alley. I want to see those two fight, and I want it to buy some time, and I do want to see Tony and Habib. And then whatever happens, even if Nate loses the fight, you got loser versus loser, make him fight Conor.
Fighters coming off a loss. Sometimes I even cringe when I see on Junkie it says losers. What's next for the losers?
I know, but it's tough because what do you say?
Right,
what do you do with the day's second place participants or whatever?
All right, Dan. What do you want to see for Nate Diaz next?
I'm with Goes. I mean, I like the Jorge Masvidal fight just from a selfish perspective, even though I don't think it's going to happen. I think I tweeted out because, Masvidal always has that Scarface entrance, so I tweeted out the Tony Montana going, fuck the Diaz brothers, thing.
Didn't think of that one, yeah.
It's perfect.
And
it's
now
Nick
can walk him out because he's like months beyond suspension.
There you go. But the sad part is I don't think Nate Diaz's next matchup has anything to do with Nate Diaz. I think it has to do with two things that aren't him. It's the UFC's pay-per-view schedule. Like you just said, they spread out their paydays. They got to spread out their headliners now. And B, it's the lightweight title picture, which of course includes Conor and Habib, whether we like it or not, whether that rematch is going to happen or not. Those two guys are the ones that are really deciding what's going to happen with the fallout. So in that case, I'm with you guys. I think Tony Ferguson deserves to fight Habib. And of Conor's options, he can't just go down and get like a pick-me-up fight because those don't exist in MMA, especially when you're Conor McGregor of all people. So the closest thing he's going to get to that, and obviously it's a winnable fight for Nate Diaz. There's people out there who think he won both of them for crying out loud, but the closest thing to a more commensurate matchup would be Nate Diaz 3. So yeah,
I like the Nate Diaz Masvidal angle, but I liked it for UFC 230.
Yes.
I just want Nate to fight. And I have a feeling that if he gets out there and just has a good knock, like Conor says, it might bring him back. That fighting thing's contagious. And I think, he looks to be in good shape. He's that close to a fight. If it can't be New York, make it Toronto and just let's get him out there. So if Masvidal's the one that gets him out there the soonest, great. If Poirier can run then, great. I feel like if we get into Conor, Habib, or Ferguson or anyone else talk, now we're leading into 2019 because there has to be kind of a little bit more of a build-up. Plus, I don't even know if he really deserves any of those names other than Conor because they're 1-1, and that's just a special trilogy that they got going on.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go to another point. Wouldn't you guys say that this weekend played out nicely by having Ferguson and Pettis? Oh, and by the way, credit to the UFC fighters. I'm not sure what the stats are, but for the last 6-7 shows, either they've all made weight or maybe there's been 1 or 2 hiccups, but, we've been on fire, so that's a great thing. But didn't you like having the Ferguson-Pettis insurance policy there? We got to the finish line. They all fought, and had there not been the unfortunate incident that happened after the Habib-Conor fight, didn't you guys just love that right away 2 guys coming off that card, even though it's 2 that have been booked 4 times, and for whatever reason it's been falling apart, they're ready to go, kind of like in a certain timeline that as long as both guys didn't have a serious injury, we could see them at some point in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. John rattled off 3 or 6 names, so 3 matchups in the middleweight division that I also like. I like the big focus at middleweight for New York. Please, UFC, give us more of that.
I was down with it. I liked it. Had it not happened the night of, I would have been okay buying the pay-per-view, but if I were in the arena, I would have been pretty pissed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Had that fight fell through, let's say,
which fight?
Conor and Habib,
Oh.
now you're just left with the co-main.
Yeah.
If I had bought tickets, I would have been pissed.
Yeah.
But watching it here, I would have been okay.
Can I re-inject something that we talked about on the show before, but I think it's appropriate for what we're talking about now. Maybe get John's opinion, but with the UFC strength of schedule, we were talking about like a couple weeks ago, John, how many UFC headliners? Now there's stars like Conor, and then there's guys like Gaethje, and then there's other guys maybe even lower that they still could put on top of. I'm not asking maybe to dissect the levels, but as far as who we can put on both, whether it's a pay-per-view or a fight night, what's that magic number? And for me, it was somewhere between 24 and 30.
Yeah.
And even that's like you're still having to hope nobody's injured long-term or suspended.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. You want to have at least 30 guys and gals that you can put on the top of a list and not have anybody balk at, And there are going to be those creative matchups. Certain guys, the matchups become, greater than the sum of the parts because of something that's going on or need or whatever. But, yeah, and it's tough, too. That's one thing that's the most difficult part of what the UFC does is kind of creating stars. I do hear people say a lot, the UFC doesn't do a good enough job of creating stars. Like, that's tough, man. You can't just manufacture it, especially as Vince McMahon, I guess, pointed out when he was talking about getting MMA. It's hard to create stars when you don't get to write the outcomes of the fights. You know what I mean? You can lay down the best plans, but man, the fights play out and things change.
And it sounds like it should be easy because you immediately go, what do we have? X number of champions? Well, then times that by 2 because, there's got to be at least one notable former champion floating around in the ranks. And then there's got to be, one Cowboy Cerrone, maybe not as strong as a Cowboy Cerrone but you think about that, you're like, oh, yeah, they could fill it. But then when you actually sit back and we look at it and the way the roster shakes out at the end of it, we're scrambling for names, it feels like.
I don't get Dana's adamantly being opposed to the 165-pound division. I really don't get it, and I've asked him personally.
Especially when you know it's going to happen.
If you think it, there's such a push for it. So many people asking to get it done, and here you are. You're in a situation where as you said, you need headliners, you need champions. They're trying to put belts on. And, your welterweight and your lightweight division are two of the most stacked divisions. I know he says, listen, we're at the matchmakers, and the matchmakers were saying, listen, man, I don't want another division because I don't want to create more contenders. And then you would understand because, there are those mathematical equations behind the scenes that people forget about. You only have X number of cards, which means X number of bouts, which means X number of slots available on the roster. And so, I get the arguments against it, but it just seems like, as you said, it's kind of inevitable. And it would help, solve some of these issues that the UFC admits they're having with having titles on top of cards.
Do I would imagine an organization with that many fighters, 2 matchmakers doesn't seem like enough.
Right.
I know other guys have like a little bit of hands-on, but maybe 3 or 4 wouldn't that?
Wouldn't hurt. They got some people that are helping them out.
Like a horrific job to have,
dude. It's the worst. I joked with Mick Maynard from the day he got hired because we've known Mick forever from his time with Legacy. I was like, we're going to use you as a case study, right? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're going to see how long it takes you to get just absolutely miserable in life. By the time Joe Silva left, he admitted it. He was like, dude, I got to get out, man. Like as much of a dream as this is, it's grinding. Sean Shelby behind the scenes, he'll admit to you, dude. Like won't talk about it on record, but it's like, dude, this is a grind, man. It's like everybody wants to be I get to be the matchmaker. I get to put so-and-so against this and create my card, and, this is great.
He's going to be one in another life.
Oh, it's all those calls, man. It's all those calls, of people falling off that you got to replace, or you're trying to put a matchup together, and you can't make people fight. Look at Nate Diaz, for God's sake. You got this fight that everybody seems to love, and you still can't get him to be there. So
that's true.
It is a headache of a job.
Think of it this way: as deep in the bubble as we are, and as crazy it can get for us, sometimes where I'm sure we all feel like we're afraid to look at our phones. That whole phrase. Who's more afraid to look at their phone than that guy, the UFC matchmaker? Who's more afraid to look at your phone? Like what good news is waiting me?
Exactly. The phone never rings with any good news. It's always like, oh God, what's happening now?
They have to go to therapy after that job's over just for their phone.
All right, we got to go to break. I'm losing my voice. Couple quick notes. Sergio Pettis returning to bantamweight, according to his coach Duke Rufus. We threw out the name Jorge Masvidal.
If Diaz doesn't, no more flyweight?
If Diaz doesn't want him, then Vicente Luque, by the way, wouldn't mind a piece. And also, one last thing. I believe the name Islam Makhachev got thrown around when discussing the melee. From what I've seen, he was not involved.
He was there, but he didn't.
Right.
He didn't participate in the way that Zubaira. Zubaira was dropping blows.
Yeah. So, Islam, if we threw out your name and anyone ran with that, we apologize. But yeah, he wasn't neither the guy that was riding the fence that got hit by Conor. He wasn't the first guy that jumped in all
Not
black.
the red shirt
That's
guy.
the one that was scheduled to fight Lobov.
Yep.
And he was not the red shirt guy.
And by
he
the
was
way-
not the guy in the suit that got in the shot against Dan. So if he was there, he was there. Maybe he was agitated or wanting to hit someone, but I didn't see it, and I haven't seen any video that shows
And
it.
it should just say factually for the record, I have asked the UFC what is the status of both Zubaira and Islam, and we have no official comment yet.
All right. We got to go to break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Johnny Case, who will be fighting at PFL 9 on Saturday in Long Beach, California. Get at us at MMA Junkie George at the Goes if you want some tickets. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Mentos flavored Diet Coke without their stomachs giving a single fuck. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right, we're back here on MMA Junkie Radio. We do it Monday through Friday. You know how we do's. Another great show. Almost done. We're coming down the home stretch. Ain't that right, boo?
That is right. Yeah. But I thought you guys were joking because you guys were always pulling one on me. But
I never joke with people.
I guess I mistimed it. We're back. This is our last. That was our last break. So we'll cruise into the finish line. Are we ready to go with our guests, Danny Okers?
We are.
All right, Johnny Case. He'll be fighting on Saturday. You got to tune in to PFL 9. Remember, it was a 10 p.m. start time for PFL 8. This time, it's a Saturday, and it all goes down at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific in Long Beach. We have tickets. Get at us at MMA Junkie George at the Goes. There'll be lightweights and light heavyweights on display. Nathan Schulte will be fighting Johnny Case. Johnny Case joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Johnny? How you doing?
Guys, what's up, man? I'm good. Just chilling and enjoying my week here in Long Beach.
Right on, my man. Well, your journey's been a little bit different than some of the other guys, but either way, you're there. You know what I mean? And that's how, even though they don't call it a tournament, that's how these tournaments or Grand Prix, or in this case, regular season and playoffs, that's the way they play out. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill. Seems like you've had a little bit of the luck, with the way things worked out. Are you ready to put them skills to the test, and fight twice in one night and then rise to the occasion in New York and take home that $1 million prize?
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it exactly. You said it best, man. I feel just so fortunate and so thankful to be in the position I'm in. All these other guys had to fight twice. Some fought 3 times just to qualify for the tournament. I stepped up. 2 fighters weren't cleared medically, and they needed that number 8 seed. I showed up on weight, ready to fight. My opponent missed weight by 5 pounds. Clearly didn't even didn't understand the dire situation we were in, and fortunately for me, I got to progress, and unfortunately for him, he didn't.
Yeah, and you got show money, win money, so were you able to reinvest in your camp for these 6 weeks or whatever in between fights? A lot of fighters, that's what they say they do. Some go out and get a car or a vacation. Others say, I reinvest in myself in my camp. What'd you do?
I reinvested in myself. Like, a lot of people don't know. Just the people close to me, my team, my coaches, my girlfriend. I was struggling, man. I was kind of dicked around with the last promotion. They kept saying, "Oh yeah, you'll have a fight. Stay ready, stay ready." Then it was, "Oh, you'll get a last-minute replacement," and then it's like, "Oh, you're cut. Too bad." Now we strung you along for the past 6 months, and the money that you were expecting wasn't there. So, I had to get a job. I was teaching kickboxing. It was just, it was hard. It was a struggle. So now that I got signed with the PFL, Ray Cefo's stand-up dude, obviously give me my show money and win money.
Yep.
And that's just it's been so nice not having to get up, bust my ass all day training in the morning, train at night, and then go to work. I'm able to just focus on training, getting better, and then recovering at night. And it's made all the difference in my game.
Making weight never felt better than that time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, anybody who fights, anybody who's ever wrestled knows that making weight is the only sucky part about the sport. That's really the only fight. When we get in there and we perform, we've already done it so much in the gym that it's like Christmas morning. We love fighting, we love competing, and the real fight, the shitty part of it is the weight cut. So, yeah, exactly right.
All right, I have my co-hosts here, Dan, Tom, the Goes, John Morgan. Let's go in reverse order. All right, Dan, Tom, what do you have for Johnny Case?
Hey, Johnny. I was actually just watching some tape on Nathan Schulte's last fight. He fought another guy I was pretty high on, was Chris Wade, and this guy kind of surprised me as far as kind of coming up out of nowhere. Obviously, he's a younger Brazilian guy training out of American Top Team. But have you gotten a good look at him, and how do you break him down?
I gotten a good look at him. I've watched him. I've actually just saw him this morning. I shook hands with him. I saw him on the scale. He's frame-wise, he's a lot smaller than me. His shoulders aren't as wide. His leg, he's really thick in the legs and the hips. So obviously, I think he's going to be really strong in the clinch. Really, if we lock up, that's going to be something he looks to control there. But yeah, and he fights with a lot of pressure. He fights with a lot of forward pressure. I think he kind of broke Chris Wade with that pressure, and really nullified Chris Wade's wrestling with the clinch, and I think that fits into my style really well. I'm one of the longer guys in the tournament. I can strike going sideways, forwards, backwards. I can strike from both stance, and I've wrestled since I was growing up in Iowa. I've wrestled since I was 3 years old, so I know how to wrestle myself, and I know how to defend wrestling. So I think my stylistically and body-wise, I think that's a great matchup for me.
Yeah, copy that. And just kind of one follow-up, as far as the basic question of do your past experiences help you, but more specifically, I really enjoyed your fight with Jan Cabral. That was just a real war. I know, you weren't 100%. You were having to deal through a lot of adversity, and that guy's a really good grappler. Is that kind of a contest give you, confidence going in a guy like Schulte who has the jiu-jitsu and judo?
Absolutely. That's ironic that you say that. We were, me and my girlfriend were actually just watching that 2 days ago. We were studying up on that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Going to Brazil to fight, a guy with the prestigious ground game that Jan had, definitely gives me confidence knowing that, I can hang with black belts. I can, it's MMA. I don't have to go in there and grapple this guy. If that was the case, then, he'd probably shine. I'm going in there and I'm going to fight this guy. So anything that I took from that fight is just go in there, be patient. If I'm in a bad position, no need to freak out, no need to fucking get on top, get the submission. Just wait it out, and when my opportunity comes, I'm gonna grasp it and I'm gonna take control of the fight.
All right, goes. What do you have for Johnny Case, a participant at PFL 9 on Saturday, NBC Sports, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Johnny, anytime we've ever had you on the show, no matter what's going on in your life, you've always been a very optimistic guy. You always have a great attitude. That being said, this fight, when the cage door closes, is it going to feel like every other fight, or is there something about that $1 million that will be riding in the back of your head?
Oh, man, that's the last thing I'm worried about. The only thing I'm worried about is going out and performing and doing what I love. If I do that to my best, I know the $1 million is going to happen. So I'm not looking past this. I'm not treating this like any other fight. I'm just treating this like what it is. This is my job. This is what I love to do. This is the life I love to live, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do what I do. And that's it. I'm not letting the pressure of the money. I'm not letting the pressure of the 2 fights. I'm not letting anything like that get to me. I know I'm prepared. I've been professional. I've been fighting professionally for the last 11 years of my life. And, this fight's no different. It's just 2 fights in one night. That'll be a little different as far as I'm interested to see how, the emotional, the hormones, the adrenaline dumps and stuff, how that plays a factor. But I've been training that as well. We've been over that in my camp. So I think I don't think it's going to be a shock or a surprise. It's just a new experience.
Had this all not gone down the way it did, PFL, all that, do you feel like eventually your path would have crossed anyway for maybe season 2?
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that my product sells. I have a product that I can compete with any of the best fighters in the world. I can go out there and I can compete with them. So I knew, if it wasn't with the PFL, it would be with another promotion where the spotlight was in the higher rankings. Whether that's whatever, in Japan, in America, Abu Dhabi, wherever it is. I knew there was a promotion that my product would sell. And, it just so happened with the PFL. And I could not be happier with the PFL. All the guys here are just great people. Ray Steffo is a great dude. He's a fighter himself, so he understands the ins and outs. And, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't get better than this. Nobody's paying us fighters this kind of money, and I feel like everything works out the way it's supposed to, and I just couldn't be more happy, man. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful for the universe bringing this into my life.
John Morgan from the MMA Roadshow. What you got for my man Johnny Case?
So, Johnny, you said it dead on. I mean, I guess you can't think about the $1 million. You can't think about the 2 fights in one night other than, you would. But there was, we're learning about this concept as we go along, and it's been fun following the season. But a rule that I honestly didn't know that we saw enacted last week was in that 2-round fight, if it ends up being a draw, you advance if you win that first round. So is that factoring into your thoughts or your strategy at all, knowing that, that semifinal matchup or that quarterfinal matchup, I should say, the first fight of the night, I got to get that first round in the bag to kind of guarantee my passage?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's always the goal. I don't ever want to go out there and give up any rounds ever. I want to always go out there and take control, and this fight's no different. It's not. I don't feel like there's an urgency for me to go out there and I have to win this round. I feel like it's just like any other fight. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to control the pace and I'm going to dictate how the fight goes. And if I do that, then the round should take care of itself, you know. That being said, I feel like the most pressure is on the second round. You know, if I go out there and the first round's close, or, you know, something should happen and he wins the first round, that means I got to get everything in me has to go out there and finish that fight in the second round. So I feel like if anything, the pressure's on the second round, not the first round. You know, I feel like I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to control the ground, and I'm going to win the fight.
So, Johnny, obviously you are feeling confident, like you will come out of this bracket. You got Schulte ahead of you. Wade takes on Watley, and obviously you feel like you can take the winner there and be in New York. Who do you think comes out of the other bracket? Have you studied it? It's Islam Mamedov versus Thiago Tavares, and Will Brooks versus Rashid Magomedov.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to end up being a Russian. I don't know. I think it's going to. I don't know who's going to win between Rashid and Islam, but I believe Rashid will beat Will Brooks. I think that's a tough fight. I don't know. Actually, with the 2-round fight too, I kind of go back and forth on that. So I with the 2 rounds, you know, Will Brooks being a wrestler, he might be able to go in there and out wrestle him and do what it takes to eke out the decision there. But I think if it comes to just fist fighting, 3-round fights, I think the Russians are probably the stronger two there. I think Islam will beat Tavares, Thiago, I don't know, whatever the hell his name is. Because those guys are they're small, man. Like Thiago, I was down there, him and my opponent, Natan Schultz, they're short guys, you know?
Right.
And studying like body frames and stuff, and I just don't know. It's going to be tough for them to close the distance, especially, you know, Islam's a pretty tall guy too. So I don't know. I think it's going to be either Islam or Rashid in the finals, personally.
All right, there you have it. Some predictions from Johnny Case. Johnny, thank you very much for giving us the time. We will be out there on Saturday, so I can't wait to see this whole thing play out. 2 fights in one night. Hopefully we run into you just to say hello post-fight. But good luck, man, with everything, and thanks for always giving us time here on the MMA Junkie Radio Show.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the good luck, and thank you for the interview. It's always a pleasure talking with you guys.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care.
All right, there you have it. Some predictions from Johnny Case. And, of course, we'll be doing a little bit of our breakdown where we take you through the bracket as well. So keep an eye out for that video sometime this week. All Brazilians, Americans, and Russians in the lightweight division here. I named those off, and just so you know, the quarterfinals stack up for the light heavyweights go. Vinny Magalhães versus Rakeem Cleveland. Bozigit Atayev versus Emiliano Sordi. Dan Spawn versus Sean O'Connell. And Maxim Grisham versus Smilinho Rama. And by the way, is it me? Or are there now like a dozen Argentinian fighters out there? Like Argentina produces pretty good athletes, like in soccer and rugby. And could it be that now maybe they're getting to boxing? They have some great boxers too.
They've had great boxers. When it comes to the World Cup, Magalhães is actually Argentinian, isn't he? He roots for Argentina before he roots for Brazil. You know that, right?
Benny's always a little bit of a left field guy.
But you're right. They do have some pretty good fighters.
When I do my social media studies for the South American fighters, I'm seeing more and more like affiliate, like, you know, maybe not 10th Planet per se, but, you know, you see those affiliate gyms pop out more and more. I mean, obviously we've already hit that in the United States. Most of the gyms have caught on and branched out if they could, but we're seeing that, you know, extend down there too now. So
yeah,
got to think.
I think they're good at rugby as well, right?
They are. Yeah, no, I mentioned that rugby, soccer.
What is it called? Bull riding, right? Or
Brazil has a good grasp on that. There's some really, like, Brazil has good surfers, auto racing drivers, bull riders, and then, of course, soccer players. But Argentina's had traditionally like a top 5, top 6 rugby team. They've had good boxers, and they've had, obviously, phenomenal soccer players.
A few basketball players here and there.
Yeah. All right, we are going to get ready to wrap up here. A big thank you to all of our guests, including Johnny Case, who we added later in the show, Frankie Edgar, and Carlos Silva. Interesting, this guy did 112 miles on a bike, 26 miles running, and 2.5 miles swim. I think it would take me a month to do all that.
Big thanks to George's voice for limping to the finish line.
I did. I barely got there.
Oh, it's a recorder.
Looks like the Ghostbusters thing, like Egon Spengler.
Very much like a stun gun, though.
All right, so tomorrow we'll have a few more PFL fighters, and I think I got a lead on a pretty special guest. Yeah. Hopefully we can get that cemented here. So thanks very much for tuning in to MMA Junkie Radio. He's at MMA Junkie John. This is at The Goes. That's at Dan Tom MMA. The voice you hear from time to time from New York, at Danny Otto. He's got his show tonight, popping off. Check it out. And I'm at MMA Junkie George. We'll see you all tomorrow with another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. Go out there and be a champion.